Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Gaming Stooges Talks podcast. We are the Gaming Stooges.
I'm Jack.
You can call me Cloud.
And I'm Landon.
We hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and if you do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, following us on Twitch, or joining our Discord. Let's get on with the show.
Hi guys, we're back again. You might be wondering why I'm wearing a bathrobe to the podcast. Well, it's because it's cozy. You know what else is cozy? Playing the DS Pokemon games Diamond, Pearl, Platinum on a nice winter night. We're here again to talk about the 4th generation Pokemon games. We got your Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, you got your HeartGold, SoulSilver, you got your Pokemon Battle Revolution, you got Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time and Darkness. There we go. I needed to calm Landon down just a little bit.
You know, I knew you were just doing it for the bit, but I'm surprised that you didn't unscowl for HeartGold and SoulSilver. But understandably for the bit.
So,
anyway.
Generation 4 games. I didn't take any notes because I have played the shit out of Generation 4 games. I know them like the back of my hand. They were a
Oh yeah? When they come out?
April 22nd, 2007 in North America.
There you go.
I wasn't asking you.
I was thank you, Jack. But yes, April 22nd, 2007 North America for Diamond and Pearl. Platinum was March 22nd, 2009?
It was like, depending on the
21st?
region, I think it was early April of 2009 in the US.
If only there was a way to know any of this information.
I know, right?
But the important thing is
If only.
the important thing is that it started in 2007 in North America. It was late 2006 in Japan, and they were a huge step forward for the franchise. We got much like Generation 3, a lot of things that stuck to this day were introduced in these games. Probably most importantly, in my opinion, would be the addition of Wi-Fi connectivity. Now you can connect online with anybody all around the world. Unfortunately, by using friend codes at the time, but you could trade battle with anybody online anywhere in the world. That was really cool, which they implemented a thing called the Global Trade Station, the GTS, so you could try to haggle people online for their level 100 shiny Dialga in exchange for a level 9 and under Mew that you most certainly do not have.
True.
But on top of that, you got this physical special split for moves, so that now you don't have the attacks tied to the type for what kind of damage that they have. It's now just the individual moves. So moves like, let's say, Waterfall and Surf in earlier games, they were all water, so they were always all special. But now, Waterfall is a physical move. So if you attack with physical Pokemon, higher attack like Gyarados, they'll actually do better with that move because it lines up better. It's a whole thing. And the 4th generation games as well introduced 107 new Pokemon. That brought our total up to 493. Many of those Pokemon are notably evolutions of existing stuff from prior games, as well as a number of baby Pokemon that are related to Pokemon from earlier games. So this was a generation where they were really focusing more on new features as opposed to totally new Pokemon, since a lot of Pokemon were based on, related to older species. You had the return of contests. They were a little different this time, but you still had them. This is the first games that introduced 3D in some form into the game. For this one, it was just the overworld, so you could traverse the overworld maps in 3D. Everything else was still sprite-based, but it was a leap forward graphically still. You had the return of Pokemon having fully animated sprites both front and back. Emerald had introduced the return of the front sprites, but now the back sprites have more full animations thanks to later games. HeartGold and Soul.
You can see butt wiggle.
You can see butts wiggle, exactly. You've got the Sinnoh region introduced in Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, a massive region with not a lot of water, contrary to the previous generation that had what IGN would argue was too much of it, as well as a bunch of new gym leaders, bunch of new Elite Four, a new champion, all that good stuff. You basically got, the same old, new additions. They replaced Pokeblocks from the last game with Poffins. We're going to see this a lot in like later generations where there's like something similar to what we had, but there's like a spin on it, I guess. HeartGold, SoulSilver, we'll talk more about that later on in the podcast, but fair to point out the return of following Pokemon. So that's a beloved feature that people had. The Poké-Nav that we had from the Generation 3 games has been replaced in the Sinnoh-based games with a new Pokétch, because the games went to the DS. You had two screens, so to utilize that bottom screen a lot of the time, you'd have, out of battle, you'd have this new Pokétch thing. It was like a watch. You could go through different little apps on it. Yes, it told time, but it could also like do little other things. You had a calculator. You had like little things with like your Pokemon sprites. Like there was actually a little thing that could display your party, so like you didn't have to go into the menu to check how healthy they were. You could just kind of run around and like see on the bottom screen, oh, my Pokemon are kind of that also had an app that made roaming Pokemon, which unfortunately made another cut return in these games. Much easier to spot because they actually have a little icon on a new map app on the Pokétch, which is basically kind of like a borrowed thing from the Pokegear of Gen 2, but now you can actually just look at it without going into an additional menu. In battle, because of that touchscreen, you can now tap on the screen, and it's a lot easier to like select your moves if you decide you don't want to press the A button, because apparently that's too much work. Fun fact about that, though, the in-battle buttons, the reason why they're so big is because some of the people that were developing the games, they knew that kids would just use their fingers and they didn't actually care about using the stylus. I mean, a lot of kids lost their stylus. Let's be real.
I was not one of those kids.
I was not one of those. I did keep my stylus, but I mean, there were kids that lost their stylus and they didn't bother using it, and they would just use the finger, and Nintendo was like, ew, that's gross. There's no way kids are doing that. And then like they were shown report that yes, kids are absolutely doing that. So
kids are not only losing their stylus, they are just straight up swallowing them.
Shoving them in their pee holes.
Just in their pee hole, and then they'll pull it out, lick it, and then whoops, I swallowed it.
Yep.
That's true. Look it up.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
Every single one. It's mostly just Jack, but every single person.
So there's a lot of new characters, new little features that are spins of older stuff, a lot of returning stuff. So let's get into it. The Sinnoh-based games, Diamond, Pearl, Platinum. How'd you guys jump in?
I bought it.
I got it for my birthday.
So you got it like a few days after.
I was gonna say, because this was the first new Pokemon generation for me, because like I got into Pokemon like after Generation 3 was already out. But so like that was like my first experience like playing through an entire game. So Diamond and Pearl was like the first like, anticipation of a new generation. And I think in like the grand scheme of games I was excited for the release of, it's probably up there in like the top 5 all time, because I was like obsessively like looking up information about these
I was
games.
gonna say, were you like me, where like you went every day on Cerebi.net to find new information after the Japanese release, but before we got it?
Not necessarily, because
that was
I
me.
I still didn't have high-speed internet back then, but I did have I don't remember what it was, but it was like a book, or like, I don't know if it was like Nintendo Powers or what, but like, I definitely had like bits and pieces of information here and there, mostly just like, most of what I knew were like a few of the gym leaders maybe, what the evil team looked like for this region, and the first stage of each of the 3 starters.
So I just want to interject real quick before we go too far off course, but I was one of those people, and like I I explicitly remember I didn't have high-speed internet, much like you. I actually used my 1 hour a day session at the library to use the first bit of it to check for new information on Cerebi.net, because I was like, I want to see what new stuff is happening.
It's dedication.
Yeah. I also played RuneScape, but still.
But I had my sister and I were both really excited for it because she had gotten into Pokemon like just the year before. So she was really excited for it too. And we had a friend, like a neighbor friend who was like really into Pokemon, and we were like, you know, the three of us were all fucking talking about it for like months beforehand. And I remember being kind of pissed because neighbor friend was like, his parents were kind of rich and they had a Sam's Club membership. And I remember this, Sam's Club was selling the game a day early before its actual release date.
Wow.
And he was able to get it before it released on the 22nd. Either way, I would have had to wait until my birthday because my birthday was just 3 days after its official release. So I just waited. But I remember, you know, getting it on my birthday that week. And that night, I pretty much played it nonstop. I don't remember if I slept that much, to be honest, but I remember like going to bed at least for a little bit and then waking up like very, very early, like 3 or 4 in the morning, and just like playing Pokemon Diamond until it was time to go to school. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I beat it like that weekend. It was kind of ridiculous. I was really into it when it came out.
So I have not too different a story. I have a pretty similar story. So with Diamond Pearl, I wanted Pokemon Pearl because I had seen beforehand when I was looking up stuff on Cerebi. I thought Palkia was cooler, so I was like, oh, that's the one that's on the Pearl box, so I want Pearl. I had not obtained a DS. I wanted a DS really bad so I could play this game. And I remember my dad said, like, around the time of my birthday in 2007, I can't get you anything at the moment, but I'll get you something soon, I promise. And, you know, a week went by, couple weeks went by, month went by, nothing. So at this point, I had traded one of my games that I wasn't really playing at the time. I know it was I think it might have, I don't remember which game it was, but I got Pokemon Ranger for DS, and I kept it in a drawer, and I was like, I'm going to play this. I don't even remember if I knew about the whole Manaphy egg thing when I got the game. I just was like, oh, this is a DS game, and I know I'm going to get a DS at some point, and it's Pokemon, so I'll play it. And my dad still hadn't gotten me my gift. So I bugged him. I got my mom to get a hold of him on April 21st, 2007. Yeah, the day before the games were set to come out. And I was like, listen, Dad, tomorrow's the day that a game I am extremely excited for is supposed to come out. You promised me a birthday gift, and I'm asking you please to get this for me today. So he came and got me, and he brought me to the nearest, I think it was Walmart, or it might have been Circuit City before Circuit City went down. But we went straight to the electronics section. There was a DS Lite, white one. So I was like, that's good enough. So I got the DS Lite in preparation for Diamond and Pearl. I proceeded to stay up all night playing Pokemon Ranger because I was too excited for this game coming out the next day to go to bed. So I beat Pokemon Ranger that night. Here's where the story gets fun. The morning of the release, there is what I thought was an active game store right down the street from where I lived. So I walked over there and I was like, this store should be open. I'll grab a copy. I'll go home. I'll play the game. I didn't realize that even though that the shop was open just a few months before, they had closed down before the game came out. So I was waiting outside all day for like, not all day, like for several hours. I think I got there at like 10 a.m. because I think they were supposed to be open at 11 when they were open. And so I was waiting, and it was like 12:30, 1 o'clock. And like, I realized this store is closed. You know, my 15-year-old like brain, I was patient. I was like, all right, they're definitely not open. So I go back home and I beg my mom. I'm like, Mom, it is a Sunday. There are no buses. I want to go get the new Pokemon game. So she brings me to Walmart and I buy the new Pokemon game. And then I go home and I play it, and I got like all the way to Eterna Forest, and I passed out. I don't remember what time, but I just remember that my DS Lite was on red when I woke up that morning, so I couldn't bring it to school with me, and I had to charge it over the course of the day. So that was cool. Much like Jack, I did beat it within the week. Like, it was the Saturday after it came out, I had beaten it. And I remember it was a close match between me and the champion of the Sinnoh region, Cynthia, very iconic character that, well, I'm sure at least three people, at least two people in this podcast and our live viewer that has been in the chat alike. I don't know about the third person in our podcast, if he cares.
Are we talking about Jack?
No, you're... Jack is a simp for Cynthia, just like me.
Not as
quite
much
much,
as far
yeah.
as you. I certainly like Cynthia.
I wouldn't say I'm like that. I'm like that as much anymore. Like, I like a more variety of characters, but she was like my favorite character for like a really long time. But yeah, beat her on.
You had issues.
But I had beaten her on that Saturday, so I had beaten the game within a week, which is crazy because I distinctly remember I spent like 50 hours on that file before I beat it. So somehow I spent 50 hours in 6 days to beat that game. And
I believe that.
This is, I believe, with school. I don't think this was the week that we had, like, because we have like a spring vacation. I don't think it happened during that week. Maybe it did, and I'm mistaken, and like I just played through it that whole week, and I'm thinking of a different occasion where my DS had died over. I know it was almost dead when I woke up the day after, but I don't remember if there was a day where I was like going to school or not. But yeah, so like it was a long grind. But I spent 730 hours on that Pearl file before I like overwrote it. So that is, to this day, longest file, single file in any video game I've ever played. Ever. So that should say something about me. But Landon, you said you bought it.
I don't know. I don't remember. That was almost 3 lifetimes ago now.
It was I was
going to say it's
17 years.
17 years, which is more than half our life ago.
That's 3 lifetimes ago. My expected lifetime is like, I don't know, maybe
6.
7 years. Yeah, like 6-7 years at best. So I've died and come back a couple times now.
I was going to say, to be fair, yeah, I mean, you say 17 years if we were all teenagers, and you go back, like, let's say 10 years. Okay, you were 12. So, like,
I was freshly 12.
So, like, between, like, 7 and 10 years, between when you start, like, having, like, memories and when that game came out, is that long. And then twice that long is how long that game to today. So, like, three lifetimes almost. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, see? Anyway, I obtained the game somehow. Probably, if it came out in April, it was probably a birthday gift. Let's be real. It's, especially that close to my birthday.
I was going to say, it was just 3 days before my birthday, which means it would be 4 days before yours, so not too much of a difference.
Yeah, so It was probably a birthday gift. I probably played it, and that's that.
There you go.
You know, my story is so much just as interesting as both of theirs. Let's be real.
Who did you guys pick for your starter? So there's Turtwig, Chimchar, Piplup for this generation.
Only good starter.
First playthrough, I chose Chimchar.
I'm guessing you picked Turtwig because grass type landed.
That sounds right.
Okay.
Like I said, I only picked the only good starter.
He's like, I don't remember, so I'm asking you to remember for me.
Which one's the good one?
I mean, I like all three of the starters personally, but I picked
All right.
I picked Piplup. That was my starter, and because I was cringy, I named it Happy Feet after the movie Happy Feet, which had come out a little bit before the game did. I think it was like.
So I was gonna say, so you're saying you didn't name it after the Wombo combo, but that happened after. So never mind.
No, I named it Happy Feet after the movie, and I remember I knew about the starters obviously because of Cerebi, and I thought it was cool that it was like a water steel type. And I know, like, I think I was juggling between whether I wanted the grass or the water because I wasn't really interested in another firefighting type. I was happy with the last firefighting type, so I didn't want to pick Chimchar evolving in an Infernape. But I remember I ultimately went with Empoleon because at the time I liked water type starters a lot. So as far as characters, we've got new gym leaders in. You got Rourke, Gardenia. Got we'll go in the Diamond Pearl order. So that would be Maylene, Crasher Wake. You got Fantina. You got Byron, Candace, and Volkner. Those are the new gym leaders. You have any favorites among those?
Yeah.
We talked about gym leaders in the last episode, so I just kind of want to stay consistent with how we proceed.
I've had a crush on Gardenia since I was 12, and that never really changed, honestly.
I like Gardenia. I like a lot of them, but yeah, Gardenia's pretty cool.
I do like Gardenia. I think Crasher Wake is really cool.
Crasher Wake's
great.
great.
He's just a fucking wrestler, and it's great. I love Fantina. I think the idea, I don't like them too much individually, but I think it's cool that Byron and Rourke are like a father-son combo. Like individually they're kind of whatever, but it's like, oh, that's cool. It's like you fight, the guy's kid, and then you fight like the man who trained him like later in this. It's kind of like story progression almost.
Yeah.
And I know you like Volkner.
I love Volkner. Volkner is one of my favorite gym leaders. Like I don't know why. I thought the idea of there's only been 2 electric type gym leaders before Volkner. At the time, you had Lieutenant Surge and you had Watson, and they were both like boisterous figures. Like Lieutenant Surge was more like a stern, but Watson was like more laid back and happy and jolly.
They're both
so
pretty like loud, happy dudes.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
So having this like more stoic, meek character who's just kind of like down on his luck and he's just like, oh, I'm bored with stuff, but he's an electric gym leader. I was like, that's ironic, and I kind of fuck with it.
I do think the juxtaposition of like being an electric gym leader that's just like suffering from burnout is pretty funny.
Yeah. I like his story because he actually has connection to the Elite Four, which helps segue into them. And you don't really get that in Pokemon games a lot. Like a lot of the time, either the Elite Four is just completely disconnected from the gym leaders and the gym challenge character wise, or you have this weird situation where like they have like their own backstory and it's like tied to other stuff that exists in games, but not necessarily the game you're playing. Like in the Generation 2 games, you had Koga and Bruno, who were previously part of the Kanto League Challenge. Koga as a gym leader, Bruno as an Elite Four member, and they stay as and they both are Elite Four members in Gold and Silver, and Lance moves up, and so like you have this like cool story element to them, but that story element is tied to the previous game and not the game you're playing necessarily. Although Lance has like, you know, connection to the plot and other aspects, but here you actually have like a gym leader directly connected to one of the Elite Four members because they're friends, and you get to fight them as a team in like Platinum version. That's pretty cool. But yeah. So yeah, I like Volkner. I like most of the gym leaders. Like you, pretty much everything you said, Jack. Like I like most of them. Not as much when it comes to Rourke and Byron individually, but together as like a father-son combo. It's kind of cool. They kind of remind me of like a Tate and Liza, but split into two gym leaders, sort of thing. Where like, you know, they have that connection, and they have like similar.
And they're
Pokemon.
also like, yeah, I was gonna say like similar typing, like Rock and Steel.
Right. So, I do like that the gym leaders in this game are a bit more involved in stuff outside of their gyms. There's a lot more of it in Platinum, but basically you've got like Crasher Wake leaves his gym to investigate. We'll talk about the Team Galactic is the new evil team, and they're trying to go after the legendary Pokemon Dialga or Palkia, depending on your game, and they're trying to capture the Pokemon from the 3 lakes, the Uxie, Mesper, Azelf for the legendaries. And so you're trying to stop them. Well, Crasher Wake gets involved because something happens at his gym's city. They like set off a bomb very close by. There was like a Team Galactic guy that like tried to run away and like hide out in Pastoria. You have
I feel like a lot of people glaze over the fact that there's a straight up terrorist attack in this game.
Yeah. Not even just one. They like tried multiple times.
Oh yeah, but like literally just like setting off a bomb in like right next to the city.
Yep.
And just like creating a huge crater in the ground.
Yep.
And you, the 10-year-old protagonist, is just like, I'm gonna go kill him.
Yeah, I'm gonna go beat him up for doing the bad thing. The bad thing. But no, yeah, it's crazy how like nonchalantly they take like, this is probably the most dangerous team when it comes to scale in the franchise, and they downplay it so hard because it's all done for like comedic effect.
It is pretty crazy, but like Team Galactic I think comes the closest to like actual world domination than any other team in the franchise.
I would say, yeah, I mean, you could argue in the next generation, we'll talk about Team Plasma, they get pretty damn close on a smaller scale. Like, they don't actually, like, take over the whole world, but, like, they almost accomplish their goal and they're, like, moments away. But, like, yeah, no, they're pretty damn close. I mean, they have the legendary, they've got it contained from an item that they created using the other legendaries that they created to restrain it, and they got, like, their hand on the button almost. It's just the Pokemon manages to like break free. So
I mean, Dorito Man also gets pretty close in X and Y.
He does. I mean, he's
but I feel like the stakes aren't as high.
He sets off like a premature well, I think it's just because like he fails to like set off like the full effect of the weapon in X and Y, but I mean, we can get into that when we talk about the X and Y segment.
Yeah.
But
we can skip over that. That's fine. Let's just skip that podcast. That's fine.
But I had a feeling you'd say something like that. But yeah, but going back to gym leaders, I like Crasher Wake because he gets in a little bit involved for that. I like other gym leaders for going outside their gym. Like Byron visits Iron Island. Apparently that's where he goes to like mine for metal, and you actually get a little bit of story gameplay integration where like you can actually just catch fully evolved Steelix at Iron Island, and Byron uses one, so you can kind of like surmise that, oh, maybe he caught the Steelix here at this area. So there's like this little cool bit there. You have trainers, you have gym leaders like Volkner appearing outside the gym, as I mentioned, because you have to go to his lighthouse and he's like trying to fix up the city's power supply. And then you have that whole like development where like he's bored with his job as a gym leader, yada yada. Fantina, you get to visit her at the contest hall, so like you get introduced to contests that way. and just a lot of like little bits and pieces where like you've got a gym leader leaving their gym to go do something else. So like they have lives outside of the gym. It's nice.
And it was really like the first time they did something like this, because previously the gym leaders are just like locked to the seat that you find them in.
Right. Like you might get like one instance here or there of some exceptions,
like,
but
with the exception of Giovanni.
I mean, there's a couple exceptions. You have Claire leaves her gym to go to the Dragon's Den.
That's true. That's true.
In Generation 3, he doesn't leave the gym, but you do have some out of gym story with Norman because he helps. He has you teach Wally to go catch the Ralts. So like he's like
that's true, but the only time you see him outside of the gym is after you've beaten the game, actually, because like he's at your house.
Right. I mean, I'm also like kind of counting like story bits that aren't connected to the gym, I guess. Maybe not necessarily.
Doesn't Watson fuck off?
He does.
Oh yeah, Watson leaves the gym for
see. There's another example
to give you a side quest.
But
another silly example.
But it is far more consistent to actually see this happen in these games than in any other previous game, because most gym leaders usually just stick to their little gym building. So their story doesn't usually veer away from that. So we got more of that. We got a very entertaining rival in Barry, who really needs to chill the fuck out because he's constantly bumping into you. Literally bumping into you. Yeah, he's a rival.
Barry's the rival?
Of course he's the rival. He has the starter.
That doesn't sound right.
He has the starter that's strong against yours. He builds a solid team of 6 Pokemon and challenges you multiple times over the course of the game, including right before you challenge the Pokemon League. He's your rival.
Yeah, but does he threaten my life with a gun?
I don't recall.
Does anyone in this franchise?
I mean, the worst that happens is like Silver shoves you. He doesn't even have a gun.
All right, well then, I don't think there's any real rivals in the Pokemon games, I guess.
In fact, I would argue that if, some sort of physical altercation is supposed to be like grounds for being a rival, Barry is more of a rival than Blue, because Blue doesn't actually physically get involved with you, but Barry bumps into you literally. So that's more.
But Blue damages me emotionally every day.
True. But I mean, I don't know about you. I liked Barry as a rival. I think he's a pretty respectable rival. He's, at least to me, he's a step up from the rivals of the previous generation.
He is 100% more of a rival than whatever the fuck was in Gen 3. Specifically in Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald.
Yeah. Like, no offense, like, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, they're great games, but the rivals are like, I mean, they each have different...
Non-existent.
Pretty much. No, I mean, definitely not as much as Barry. So, I like Barry as a rival. And then as far as other characters goes, it's kind of interesting. They did still incorporate, like, the opposite gender character, because this was a thing they started doing in Ruby Sapphire, where they used it as the rival. So, like, if you pick the female or the male, then the other gender is your main rival for most of the game up until like a certain point. But in this game, they don't play as a rival. They'll actually be the professor's assistant, and they'll have picked the Pokemon that is actually weak to your starter, and like you'll team up with them a couple of times over the course of the game. They help you against Team Galactic a couple of times, namely, and
a true rival. This is the true rival character.
Yes, the one that you don't fight against actually is your real rival.
That's the way I see it.
Have you brought up Team Galactic leader Cyrus?
Not
canonically 27 years old.
Not yet. Do you want to talk about Team Galactic boss Cyrus?
Old man Cyrus, age 27.
Yeah.
I just think that fact about him is very funny. I think like for years and years people assumed he was like in his 40s, but like no, he's in his late 20s.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty
the stress of taking over the universe really does something to us all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is younger than all 3 of us on this podcast. That's funny.
I mean, right now he is. But, yeah.
Yeah.
Does that mean we're dirt if he's that old?
Yes. Definitely.
I think it's funny that he looks like he should be the same age as Giovanni, who is definitely some amount older than Cyrus. But no, like Cyrus is like way younger than him.
Is weird.
I do like Team Galactic though as like an evil team. Like they, as we mentioned, they're not taken seriously, which is very interesting because like, despite the whatever the stakes might be, Team Rocket, Team Magma, Team Aqua, they are all treated as some level of threat. They are treated seriously. They are not treated as like some sort of joke by, you know, whoever they bump into. They are like legitimately a problem. Well, Team Galactic is so much of a joke. They have a big building in Veilstone. They cause a bunch of trouble all over the region, and nobody fucking cares. They literally don't care.
Yeah.
Sinnoh is a lawless land. There is no cops. I choose to believe.
There's no...
There are cop trainers, but there's no active cops.
I was going to say, it is funny. There, you can fight some cops at nighttime, because they did... They brought back the day-night cycle in these games, and from here on out, we will always have one. Thanks to, you know, the systems actually being able to just handle that themselves, because...
What?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, was this the first generation that introduced, like, time-specific trainer battles? Because there are some,
it was
types
They had them in Gold and Silver as well. They had officers that you could only fight at night as well.
Okay. Because I know, like, in addition to that, there's also...
They flushed it out.
You have, like...
they flushed it out, yeah.
You have like triathletes who are only available like between like 4 and 10 a.m.
Yeah, it's morning for them.
And like a few others that are, I'm pretty sure at least a couple others that are like time specific, but yeah, no, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, they not only brought that sort of thing back, but they expanded on it. So like you had a lot more instances of stuff happening only at certain times a day. And speaking of bringing back day-night and week cycles, daily cycles, they really went overboard on some of the stuff that you can do basically like daily, because they reintroduced berries from the 3rd generation games, and they have, you know, similar purpose. You use like a mulch now, but you do the same thing where you can plant berries, water them, grow berries that way. More consistent than the Generation 3 games because you don't have to worry about an internal clock running out. But now you also have honey trees where you get to lather specific trees with honey, and you have to go back not less than 6 hours, but also not more than 24 to see if something happens. And there is a 1% chance that you can get a Munchlax, but it only shows up on 4 of the trees. And no, you don't know which 4 they are because it's randomly generated when you start the game.
I definitely remember trying to grind to get a Munchlax when I was a kid, because like I knew about like how rare they were. And what I would do is I would like, before I went to bed, I would like put honey on as many trees as I could, and then I would just check them all in the morning until I found one.
Yeah.
Al said, "Good mechanic, Kappa."
Fuck off, Al.
I believe there was also they brought back... No, I don't think there was. I'm trying to think if they did a daily event for ribbons, but no, that was like I think they did like something else for that, because they brought back ribbons. Ribbons were a thing that they added in Generation 3. I don't think we talked much about them, but like you can collect them on your Pokemon to kind of like showcase accomplishments that they did, and those are back. I think I was thinking of the nature-based ones, where like you get them based on like what nature the Pokemon is or whatever. But they also, other daily event stuff is they allowed for, so we mentioned Generation 3 had this issue where you could not connect them to the previous generations of Pokemon. Generation 4 brought back the ability to do this, and how they did it was there was this unique feature with the DS, because it has the dual slots, you have one GBA slot, one DS slot. They actually utilize this for the Generation 4 games, and you can put your Game Boy Advance game in when you beat the Pokemon League and you obtain the National Pokedex, which in these games, you have to see all 150 Pokemon in the Sinnoh region's Pokedex. Not quite as hard as that might sound, because they do make sure that there's some way to see all of them by the time you reach the end of the game, but it is still tricky. And in Platinum, it's harder because there's 210. They expanded the dex to be an extra 60 Pokemon long. So you see all of them, you get the National Pokedex, you go to Pal Park, and you can migrate your Pokemon up from your Generation 3 games. There's also the dual slot feature where you can go to like different routes, and some routes based on the Generation 3 cartridge you have in will actually spawn unique Pokemon. So one of the most popular, well-known ones is having any of the Generation 3 games in your DS. You go to the Old Chateau, which is this like post-game only area. Well, not post-game only area per se. You can use Cut to access it, but you go into like this spooky house, and there's like this one room where you can encounter Gengar, like actually just fully evolved Gengar, as long as you have any of the cartridges in that slot. I know that Fire Red gives you Growlithe in a couple of locations. Vulpix, I think, appears if you use Leaf Green. So there's stuff like that where you get like version exclusives based on which game you have to kind of like add some continuity. But yeah, you can migrate stuff, you can do stuff like that. So there's not related to these, but you have the Poke Radar, and the Poke Radar is like this stupid little thing where like you turn it on and it like spawns some Pokemon, and then when you beat the game, like they had like more Pokemon that you can get that way, and they're like Pokemon you can only get that way as opposed to like any other method. So I remember using that feature to a very large degree. I spent a lot of time like moving stuff up back in the day and like fiddling around with that. Did you guys use the dual slot mode?
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely transferred all of my Pokemon up.
I know I had I think I had Leaf Green and Emerald mostly. I don't remember if I had Ruby at the time at that point. I don't think I had Ruby anymore after that. I think I just stuck with Emerald. So I just had those two games.
I had all 5, so I'm sure I used it once.
Oh wow, you had all 5? High roller over here.
So here's a fun fact. Gen 4 was the start of the decline of Pokemon. And by that I mean, I stopped getting every single version of every single game that released in a generation.
Okay.
Because Gen 2 I had all 3. Gen 3 I had all 5. And then this one I only ever had Diamond and SoulSilver.
So this is where you started picking just one game out of the set, and you were just like, that's it, that's good enough for me.
Well, and there's multiple reasons for that. One, we had, I had a Game Boy Color and a Game Boy Advance SP, and we actually had 3 Game Boy Advance SPs in the house, so I could trade amongst myself all the time. So yeah, I'll get all the games so I can get all the Pokemon. Because I don't know humans. I don't like humans. Humans are gross and disgusting.
True.
Yeah.
Real life humans are gross and disgusting. If I have to look and touch at a human, no way. No way, man. So the internet also like played into a role. I could, if I wanted to get all the Pokemon, I could trade for them there. But then also like having more than a DS. No.
Yeah.
Like that was like, I had one system. I didn't have a second DS until the 3DS came out.
Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning. So like the DS was not like super expensive in the grand scheme of systems, but as far as handhelds go, it was Nintendo's most expensive handheld at that point, because So I know the DS Lite was 130 when it had first come out, but that was already 2 years into the cycle. The original DS wasn't, I don't remember how much it was. Was it like 149? It was like 150 or something like that?
I think it was 150.
Yeah. So
Yeah, 150.
keep in mind the Game Boy. I don't know about the Game Boy, but the Game Boy Color came out at $80, and the Game Boy Advance was like $100. I think the Game Boy Advance SP launched at a similar price, so like getting a DS was tougher. You weren't likely to have 2 DS.
Yeah, especially if like the other people in the house like didn't really play, especially handheld games, like I did. So like anyone I was growing up, like they didn't have I was the only one who would have a handheld gaming device going forward. So it made it really hard to like even like reason out that like, well, I don't need Pearl.
Yeah. I take it you must have used the GTS a lot, right?
I used the GTS and like trading with people, yeah.
Nice.
When I was doing a lot of that. Yeah.
Me too. Jack, did you use the GTS a lot?
I did not actually, because I did not have home Wi-Fi until like I want to say like 2010 or 2011.
It's funny.
Like,
Jack,
I would not have a wireless
poor?
connection in my. Not poor.
So it's funny that Jack's like, oh, I didn't use the Wi-Fi because I didn't have it. Meanwhile, my ass was leeching off of other people's unlocked Wi-Fi because back in the day, people didn't know how to lock their Wi-Fi. So like there was just a ton of people with totally unlocked Wi-Fi. So as long as you were kind of close to as long as you were kind of close to somebody's house, which at one point I would move somewhere where I could actually sit on my porch and get a signal from like somebody's house kind of nearby. So that's what I would do. I would go sit on my porch and I'd leech off a neighbor's Wi-Fi and I'd hop on the GTS and try to see if I could make some trades for a bit.
What a wild world where you couldn't just have decent speed internet that you owned.
Yeah.
What a bunch of poor people.
2007 was a rough time.
I had high-speed internet when I was, as early as probably late 2007, but like we wouldn't have a router for a while because like we didn't need one. We just like we had one home computer, and I mostly just played like single-player Nintendo games, so like we didn't really have a need for a router for a while.
I remember specifically we didn't have a wireless hookup for our internet until I want to say it was by the time I got a PS3 that like we ended up trying to get a like Wi-Fi set up for our internet because like we had a modem that like was connected to our computer for a couple of years, so we had internet, but again, like Jack said, no Wi-Fi. So afterwards, we would get it because I was like, oh, I want to be able to play my games online on my PS3, but I can't do that without Wi-Fi. And that's how like we had eventually gotten that. So I went through a lot of Gen 4 with no Wi-Fi of my own. I had to be. This
is the difference of growing up in a household of 5 to 6 people.
Yeah. It was only like me, my mom, and then occasionally sometimes my sister would stay for a little while if she couldn't really afford her own place. Sometimes my aunt would stay. So like we maybe had a third or a fourth, but never as many people as you had.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a house of 6 people.
Well, you're 6 poor people.
Wow, it's so mean.
Al told me to do it.
I really would. If I really grew up poor, I would just say it. I wasn't poor growing up.
No, I was probably the poorest.
No, it was definitely me. Trust me. Like my mom was getting disability checks. Ain't nobody more poor ain't nobody more poor than this boy over here out of the group.
That's fucking badass.
Yeah, I think Cloud definitely wins the poor Olympics between the three of us.
I don't want to. but I do. And with that said, before we jump into the rest of the generation, was there anything else we wanted to talk about specifically with Diamond, Pearl, Platinum? And
I've
Games are
never
slow.
played Platinum.
Games are slow.
yeah,
Yes, that too. I've never played Platinum. That game doesn't exist. I don't know what content people are complaining about being missing from Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. It's all false and lies.
so
And also, yes, the games run like fucking ass.
I'll
Ass.
I'll say, yeah, Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, they're slow games. I still enjoyed them. I had a fun time, and I don't really think that Diamond and Pearl are even bad games by Pokemon standards, because like the amount of content you get in those games is insane. You have this massive.
Oh, I love the games.
You have
I love the
You have
games.
massive region. There's a good post game area, like a big sizable post game area.
I would argue this generation has the best post game in the entire franchise.
I would agree. Yeah.
Like, specifically Platinum, which had the full Battle Frontier. Like,
No. I don't know what that is.
okay, well, either way. But yeah, this was something that I even recognized, like, when I was a kid, because, like, I grew up with Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and Fire Red, Leaf Green.
Oh, wow.
So, like, I was used to, like, these games running buttery smooth and having, like, pretty quick battles for the most part. Like, because, you know, the GBA games all ran at 60 FPS, but, like, and not that the frame rate was something that I minded going into Diamond and Pearl. Like, I didn't mind that at all, but, like, I definitely noticed, like, battles
It felt
themselves
slower.
are slower. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's the first iteration on a console like Curse, especially for Pokemon, because they had 0 development time. So like it was literally just them testing the DS for like with Pokemon, and
Yeah.
literally every game after Diamond Pearl like
Is some degree
runs
better.
fine.
If it's the
Yeah.
first one on a console, it's gonna probably run like shit.
And if it's the second one on a console for the Nintendo Switch, it's gonna run worse.
Somehow, right?
Somehow. Yeah. But I think that's part of the reason why Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald run so well on the system, despite being the first games on the GBA. Part of it is, anyway, that they cut out the day-night cycle. And it's
They had
like,
to cut a lot of things to really.
yeah, but it's still, you know, that's part of why.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to talk about it now since Landon just walked away. You mentioned earlier that you played Pokemon Ranger
I did.
the day before. I was also, not the day before, but I was also playing through Pokemon Ranger in preparation for Diamond and Pearl, because I didn't know what it was, but I knew that there was a special Pokemon that you could get in Diamond and Pearl if you beat Pokemon Ranger and then transferred it.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't know about that. I had already played, interesting, I had already played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team when I still had Game Boy Advance and I didn't have a DS yet. And I had no interest in Pokemon Dash, but like I saw Pokemon Ranger and I was like, oh, that's a DS Pokemon game and it looks cool, so I want to play it. And I was just like, ooh, you know, Pokemon game on a new system, like this is exciting. And that was just something I played first. But I did end up getting a Manaphy egg from that, so that was cool.
Pumpkin pie.
First off,
That's a
fuck
Costco
yourself.
pumpkin pie, isn't it?
Second off, did you know these just come to your door now? Like I just went to the front door, opened it, and there was 3/4 of a pumpkin
Nice.
pie.
Well,
Wow. Is that from Costco?
Yes.
I was gonna say, because they have. I went to Costco the other day with my friend, and they have pumpkin pies that size for $6.
Share
is
the
absurd.
food with us poor people? No way, man. No way. This is for
Ow.
people of low middle class standing.
Yeah.
That's why it's 3/4.
Yeah. They ate the poor people section.
I was going to say, you know, if there's anything else that we want to talk about with Diamond Pearl Platinum, I think we've covered everything.
I think we're good.
Before we jump into the rest of this generation, how about we do a little bit of housekeeping? We've got a lot of stuff to just kind of let you guys know what we've been up to. Twitch.com/GamingStooges.
Does that mean I can just leave?
/GamingStooges.
I can just leave now.
You could just eat pie.
Oh, I ate the pie. They missed that part.
The whole thing?
Oh God, no! That's a lot of fucking
Okay.
pie.
Okay.
That was not a poor
right.
person's pie where it's like a little mini thing. It was like a
That pie was $6, Landon. That is a poor person's pie.
if you
Landon really has it out for
me
poor people today.
if you would have let me finish, I would have said that was a lower middle class pie where you can at least
Okay.
afford a Costco membership, or do you
That's
know
true.
someone with a Costco membership?
Jack, what have we been doing on Twitch so far? Past couple of weeks.
Hey, on Twitch lately, we've had just recently started Ace Attorney Dual Destinies, the 5th game in the main series of Ace Attorney games. The only one that's M-rated, so tune in and find out why. Let's see. Landon just started Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake for the Nintendo Switch family of entertainment systems. And he just started that on Saturday. He's got another one coming up on Saturday. I think that's it for right now. You just did Sonic Superstars a couple weeks ago.
I did, and I did not beat it. I tried. I got stuck on the final boss for over an hour, and I gave up after I was streaming the second day for 3 hours.
Al says the stream's kind of lagging again.
Yeah, I can see it's like a little bit. There's not a whole lot I can do at this point.
You know what you could
I don't know,
do?
man.
You could grab a quart or whatever of Tillamook ice cream.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, so Jack, you mentioned that you were doing that. We did do Sonic Superstars. I tried to beat it. I did not. And I've heard Trip's story is even harder. So I don't think I'm gonna go back and try to do Trip's story. I do have a poll that is gonna have to be decided by a coin toss or something, because we got a tie on what my next game is, which is going to be between Super Mario 64 and Ape Escape 2. So that's an interesting.
Let's do it live.
Let's do it live.
I got a D20 right here.
All right. you want to roll it?
I'm gonna roll
Let's
for
do
it.
it live.
Do you want odds and evens? Do you want 1 to 9
Or 1 to 10?
1
you
to
mean?
10? Yeah, whatever.
1 to 10. Let's do highs and lows. So
Highs
1
and
to 10, Super Mario 64. 11 to 20 will be Ape Escape 2.
Okay.
Roll it.
18.
18. We're doing Ape Escape 2.
Rolling rocks,
We
baby.
just decided it. We decided it live on the podcast. We're catching monkeys next time. All right. Thank you for that. So we've got that going on. We also, I don't remember, did we finish the, I know that we are still waiting on the last part to go out, or it is going out. But we are wrapping up the Delta Green campaign.
Oh, that's done,
I
baby.
believe that was
All of
that's done?
all of that's
Okay.
up. Yeah. All
Okay.
of season
So-
1 is now available on patreon.com/GamingStooges. You can see there's
and
8 whole episodes of Delta Green.
have you already done like the bundle? Because we're gonna be doing a bundle for that, so you can like just get all that separate, or like from having to do like a subscription to watch it.
Yes, Delta Green Season 1 is available for purchase, the collection of the 8 episodes. So our playthroughs of Last Things Last and Extremophilia, that's what we, the case that we just wrapped up. Those are available for $10. You can just buy them, and that's it.
All right. We've got a patron shout out for Pixel Vixen, as we always do. If you are a gold tier stooge, I actually got it right that time. You can be one of the people that that all of that content, by the way. So you get the shout out, you get access to all that exclusive stuff for free. If you don't want to pay for it separate, you can get that all together. But even if you're just the Silver Stooge tier, as I had just made that decision, thanks to Landon's die roll, you can contribute to voting in polls to decide on what we do in the future. Now, that poll that I had put up was actually 3 games, and it just somehow happened to be a tie between 2 of them. So we decided through that. But sometimes there's like a runaway game that ends up taking the poll, and like, you know, it ends up winning in a landslide. Sometimes it's kind of close. You know, you can help be a deciding factor for $3 a month there. But we want to thank everybody that's been a supporter, regardless of whether you are a paid supporter or not. We really appreciate you guys just checking out the podcast. We've had quite a bit of people check it out on YouTube. We also have an RSS that exports it to other platforms. You got Spotify, Apple, Amazon. Got a bunch of cool places that you can go listen to our podcast wherever you see fit, basically. But I think that covers all of our housekeeping stuff. We're going to jump into the second half of this episode, where we're going to talk about the rest of the games, the main games from this generation, primarily HeartGold and SoulSilver. So last podcast we did for Pokemon Generation 3, we talked about Fire and Leaf Green, which were the remakes of the Red, Blue, and Yellow on the Game Boy. Well, this time we've got HeartGold and SoulSilver, which are remakes of Gold and Silver on the Game Boy Color, and they do incorporate elements of Pokemon Crystal as well. So you are basically getting a remake of Pokemon Crystal included in there as well, because you've got Suicune has its own expanded story that's similar to Crystal. But HeartGold, SoulSilver, as we mentioned earlier, you got following Pokemon are introduced, and it's like a big way. You literally just have the lead Pokemon following you around wherever you go, which is really cool. So you can have, I mean, some Pokemon, they can't follow you inside of buildings, but other than that, you can have an Onix follow you everywhere. You can have an Arceus follow you anywhere. It's pretty cool. You've got all of the Gen 4 mechanics incorporated into the Johto-based games. You've got an expansion on the Johto region. There's like now areas even more west past Cianwood City, so you can go to like a new Safari Zone that was made there to replace the fact that there was no Safari Zone originally. You have rematches with the gym leaders from both regions. They you can call them up on the Pokegear. The Pokegear's got like a lot more usage to it. You have probably one of the most important things in any Pokemon game, a dedicated run button. You toggle it on the touchscreen and you don't have to hold the button down anymore. You just run. It's not actually that important, but it is pretty nice to have as like a little extra feature. Trying to think what else. There was the Pokeathlon in HeartGold, SoulSilver as well, which is not quite Pokemon contests, but is sort of similar, where it's like a non-battle way for your Pokemon to compete in like a little mini game. And if you give them Poffins, they'll alter their stat, or not Poffins. I'm trying to think of like what you feed them. I think it's like an apricorn juice or whatever that you like mix like the apricorns together, and like they have like a juice that you can give them, something like that. But you can like change their stats around. Infamously, although you can't get its stats maxed out, Sunkern has like one of the highest potential of like any Pokemon. It's not that good because you can only actually max out like 1 or 2 stats at a time, but it's funny that it can possibly max out on anything at all. Hilariously, Dugtrio and Diglett cannot jump. They will not jump. So if you try to do like the jumping minigame, don't pick them. It will not work. There's like a couple of different. There's like a jump rope. There's like a 100-meter dash. There's like a couple different like mini games you can do in that little thing. The bug catching contest is back. There's a lot of stuff that you can do in HeartGold, SoulSilver. I honestly lose track of it because they took the daily events that you can do in Gold and Silver which was already a lot. And then they added like a fuck ton more. HeartGold SoulSilver is like that game that like if you were on a deserted island, you would not very likely run out of things to do in HeartGold SoulSilver if you pick that as your island game. There is that much to do in that game. I don't know about you guys. I got this game on launch.
I did too.
I made sure of that.
So this one I actually purchased. I remember going out and purchasing. I think it was at a Walmart, but I do remember like this one was one I purchased myself. Yeah, these games are fucking fantastic. Easily like a top. I don't care who the fuck you are. I don't care if your name is Jack. This game is easily like a top 3.
Thank you for calling out me specifically.
Well, I know it's not your top favorite. Unlike
No, it's not.
some people. Some people have more correct opinions, but I know you're not like some weirdo.
Yeah, no, I grew up poor.
Yeah. See? Now I've convinced him of his past.
That's the real problem here. It's not that Pokemon HeartGold SoulSilver is not your favorite Pokemon game. It's that you grew up poor, which by default makes your opinion worse.
Oh no, I was saying that because I grew up poor, I have the opinion that HeartGold and SoulSilver is not a top 3 Pokemon game.
That's weird.
That is weird.
Yeah.
I wasn't implying that either.
Oh, okay. That's what I was implying.
I grew up poor, and I think that HeartGold SoulSilver is a top 3 Pokemon game.
See?
So I don't know. I don't know where your mindset is.
I'm just leaning into Landon's joke. Whatever.
True. Al also got it on launch. So
yeah, these are great games.
These are great games. Who knew? They're fan favorites for a reason. They're really good. I mean, you have a Pokemon. You get to have your Pokemon follow you around. You have the expansive both regions. They brought back content that was missing in the originals because of cartridge limitations, so you can like get legendary Pokemon that weren't in the games before, and just a lot of cool stuff. Just a lot of cool stuff. Did you know that you can trade with Steven in this game for a Beldum?
Really?
Because I didn't remember that.
Where?
But you can. So you talk to him in a couple of places, but when you go to Saffron City, you go to the first floor of Silphco because it's basically all you have access to. After you've like done a certain few things, I think you might have to catch the roaming legendary from Hoenn that you can unlock through him in the game. So like Latias or Latios, depending on your version. I think you have to wait till after you do that, but like he'll trade you. I'm pretty sure he trades you a Beldum for like I think it's any Pokemon you can trade him or whatever. Because they have a couple of instances of that where like you can trade with people in a HeartGold SoulSilver and they like just give you something. Jasmine will give you a Steelix for nothing. Like you give her anything and she just gives you Steelix. But yeah, Steven will trade you as well. So like I said, there's a lot of stuff in this game. And like some of it, I didn't even remember you could do. There's just that much. So, and Jack had mentioned that the Battle Frontier in Platinum, they made like a new one, so it has a full-on Battle Frontier. You got 5 facilities this time. They actually just decided to just take that and push it somewhere else. That somewhere else being in HeartGold SoulSilver, the exact same place exists over where the Battle Tower used to exist in Crystal. No rhyme or reason why the exact same facilities and characters and everything exists there. It just is. So that's cool. Yeah, these games are awesome. Like, it's kind of hard to say much else on the matter. I mean, is there much else that we can say?
I feel like we talked a lot about like the content of this game in the Gen 2 podcast, so there's not a ton that we need to like focus on here, but like it really is, they really are phenomenal remakes, and like that's coming from someone like me who doesn't have like that strong of a nostalgic connection to the Gen 2 games. But like it's just a really fucking well done remake. Pair of remakes, I should say. But
I do love there is an item in this game that lets you, if there is an original song, like an OG song, you can listen to those. You can like replace the soundtrack. Not like they did make some new songs, so not everything is a 1-for-1, but like you can have like the original soundtrack in this as well, which is awesome.
They do make 8-bit versions of like the new tracks. The only thing is like sound effects. They don't, and like jingles, I think too, like little jingles. They don't always do those in like the GB sounds is what they call the item.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a really cool point. I like using that. Turning that on's fun.
You do have to go through basically the whole game to get it, but it's a cool thing for when you're like going and like spending your 200 to 700, post game hours in.
And I mean, like we were talking about, because of how much content there is, the game like keeps you coming back. So it's not like you're not going to have the opportunity to use GB sounds. You'll have plenty of opportunity to use GB sounds. Don't worry.
Yeah, there's a lot of, this is both of these games. So like I might not have owned all 5 games that came out this generation, but I put in a stupid amount of time into both SoulSilver and Diamond. Like this was like sort of at the height of like this and like Black 2. I would say are like the height of me like grinding to make like quote unquote competitive teams. I never got good to actually be competitive, but like I was like interested in like making like team like certain Pokemon like kind of viable, and like I would grind them and try to go for like breeding for EVs and IVs and like certain natures and shit. So yeah.
But yeah, we basically like talked a lot about the base content for these games in Gold and Silver Generation 2 podcast. So if you want to hear more about us talking about like just the base game in general, the base experience,
go listen to that podcast.
That'd probably be a good place to start. But there's a few more things we want to touch on. We had talked about Coliseum and XD in the Generation 3 podcast, so let's just touch on Battle Revolution. It is not nearly as much to talk about here. It is much more, so it's basically like the battle modes of Pokemon Stadium, and that's it. But there is character customization. It's the first like major game that has the core mechanics that you have like a huge amount of customization for your character, so you can just like get all these crazy outfits. Like you can dress like Groudon and Kyogre and a Roserade and like some other shit, and like you have a bunch of like cool stuff you can do with that. You can actually like custom make messages for like your battles that you do. But yeah, there's different like facilities. You can import your Pokemon from the Gen 4 games, and like it's done a little bit differently. In the original, in like the Stadium games, you would actually just kind of like manually be able to look at your stuff and like move it around, and you can move it off onto Stadium and hold it on Pokemon Stadium. Here, it's more like it takes a snapshot of your PC and just copies it to Battle Revolution, and then you can like use the stuff from that quote unquote snapshot in like all the battle facilities and stuff like that. So you can like see all the Pokemon in like cool 3D, and they can like go up to each other and beat the shit out of each other. Pretty good animation for its time, but like there's not a lot to do. And if you don't have a Generation 4 game to connect your DS to your Wii to like make the most out of it,
I remember renting this game, and I thought, well, one, I think the game actually, like, it looks good visually.
Oh, it looks good. Yeah.
It does.
It does. It's a stunningly great looking game.
Like, not only does it look good, but the battle animations are probably some of the best in the entire series.
The content on like that is available is like
non-existent.
It is awful. Like why are we talking about this right now?
It's crazy too, because like they have some of like the hardest boss fights and like boss trainers in like any Pokemon game, but like you have to do so much like grinding through battles over and over and over and over again to get to them, and like it's not worth it, man. It's not.
No,
Yeah.
no, this is really not worth your time.
Yeah, it's cool if you want to see your Pokemon battle in 3D and like one of the most beautiful ways to do it, but like other than like that novelty, you're not going to play this a whole lot. But there were a bunch of really like prominent spin-offs in this time. We talked about some of them in Generation 3. There was some good stuff there. But because you had stuff like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Red Rescue Team, Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire. We talked about some of these spin-offs in our original Pokemon podcast where we like devoted more time to the spin-offs because we're going to talk about the actual main games more. But I mean, you had your Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time and Darkness, and they would then release a third version, Sky. So, you know, that is like the Mystery Dungeon equivalent of like this generation is just packed with content, even in the spin-offs. Like, I mean, Battle Revolution, not so much, but like, there's Landon. I'm sure you've played a lot of Mystery Dungeon Explorers to vouch, like, there's a shit ton to play.
I mean, yes, the Mystery Dungeon is just one of those games that, like, you can just play for, like, what feels like ever. Because even, like, the normal campaign is like a good like handful of hours, but like once you get through the story, and like the story in Time Darkness Sky is phenomenal. Probably some of like probably the best, probably the best in a Pokemon game, in my opinion. The post game,
it does have really good.
The post game is where like there is tons of extra dungeons, tons of Pokemon to go and have like to go find and recruit. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, it has all 493 Pokemon that were released up to that point, because these games came out the year after Diamond and Pearl did, so they did include everything that had been included there. So there's a lot. Was there any other like notable Generation 4 spin-offs that are like really? I mean, there was a couple other Pokemon Ranger games, but it's really just more Pokemon Ranger. So either you like it or you don't like it. Because you had Guardian Signs and Shadows of Almia.
There
was. I think Guardian Signs is the third one.
Yeah, Guardian Signs, I believe, was the third one. So, I mean, if you want to count it, Brawl, because it featured Lucario and shit.
Had a
we don't
Diamond
have
and
to
Pearl
count
themed
that.
stage.
Yeah, which I will say, that stage is actually kind of fun. I liked that stage. And Lucario's fine.
Yeah, it's true. I'm trying to see something really quick.
There was Pokepark Wii, Pikachu's Adventure.
I was gonna ask that. Yeah, I was trying to look it up on Google like the Bulbapedia entry to like check the release date for it, and for some reason the Bulbapedia page just wasn't showing up on the front of frickin' Google. Thanks, Google. But yeah, Pokepark Wii, Pikachu's Adventure. It's not like the most amazing game, but it's fun. You get to run around as a Pokemon, namely Pikachu, and you can like crash into people and play tag with them. And then Pikachu like kind of dabs whenever you do anything cool. The game just says nice job, and then Pikachu just does like a dab. He basically just like puts his arms out like a dab and goes back and forth between, you know, alternating. It's weird. I don't know.
There was the Wii shop channel, like the WiiWare exclusive Mystery Dungeon games that came out.
Adventure Squad, right?
Yeah.
There's 3 versions of that. I think they called it Adventure Squad. It was like Light, Fire,
Blazing, Stormy, and Light Adventure Squads.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Ones.
And then I think the last one was the original Pokemon Rumble for WiiWare also came out for this generation.
Yep. So, a lot of games in Generation 4. It is actually probably the last like big generation for spin-offs.
Especially
not
for
to say
like
that other
solid
generations...
spin-offs. But yeah, this is definitely like, I would say like Gen 3 was definitely the height, I would say, of spin-offs for Pokemon.
Yeah.
In terms of like both quantity and quality. Gen 4
Yeah, oh for sure.
like still has some like pretty good things going for it, especially
It's
Mystery Dungeon Explorers.
it's more quantity, less quality than Generation 3.
Yeah.
It's missing a good console game, though, because, like, you know, Gen 1 had Stadium 1, Gen 2 had Stadium 2, Gen 3 had XD, or Coliseum and XD Gale of Darkness.
Gen 1 also had Snap.
True. But, like, yeah, in terms of, like, the Wii, not really much to offer in terms of Pokemon titles.
Yeah,
Like, there's a few
true.
small ones, but, like, nothing, like, mind-blowing.
Yeah. But, I mean, still more than later generations would get. Most later generations, they might get a couple of things. At least until, like, the modern day. But, like, the modern day, it's kind of funky, like, how that works. We'll get more into that when we get to those episodes. But, yeah, I think I agree with Landon. This is, like, the last big generation for Pokemon spin-offs. Because, I mean, if you wanted something... if you wanted a fix that wasn't strictly the main series, there was probably something that would be up your alley that you could play. So, you know, good generation overall. Yeah, solid generation. This is personally my favorite generation for Pokemon. This is the generation I've sunk the most time into. I guess maybe Gen 3 is probably a little bit more. But at least for the core games, but as far as like games in general, I've played the most like Gen 4 because I played a lot of spin-off stuff too. So good generation of games. So you guys have any closing statements on this insane generation?
It was definitely a formative generation for me. I mean, like I said, it was the first, like, entirely new generation for me personally, so it was, like, really exciting going in. And, you know, I was able to, like, I purchased a lot of the titles that came out during this generation, and enjoyed most of them.
Yeah. I would say not only was this a formative generation for me, this was the generation where it really hit me, and I really realized, like, Pokemon is going to be a thing that's just going to keep going, and it is not going to stop. Because, like, Generation 2, you know, that was the height of things, but, like, you know, we didn't know if it was going to continue going on. Generation 3, it felt kind of shaky, on as far as quality, like, the games were great. You know, there was a lot of good stuff going on there, but it was also a huge dip from, like, the peak of Pokemania, and... So it felt like, you know, we didn't know if it was going to be able to, you know, keep going or not. But like Generation 4 was like, okay, this is a franchise. This is here to stay. And there's no end in sight. For better or worse. Pokemon is, the years are going to keep coming and they won't stop coming. So
I look back and I'm like, I feel pretty fond about this generation. It really helps that SoulSilver, HeartGold came out during this time. That like lifts it up quite a few spots for me. Maybe if I had ever actually played Platinum.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I've played quite a lot of Platinum, but when it first came out, I actually didn't play it nearly as much as either HeartGold or Pearl. Like, confession time, I had gotten Platinum and I had gotten to the post game, and then I just kind of dropped it and I played other stuff. So like I had sub 100 hours before I picked up HeartGold. I eventually went back and played a bunch more Platinum, but yeah, no, I mean, I like Platinum a lot, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I've sunk tons of time into it. So
I just think, like, when I look back at, like, Diamond specifically, I'm like, yeah, that's good. It's definitely the weakest of the DS titles, which makes it, like, hard. Like, I'm like, yeah, it was fine. But yeah,
you
like,
should give Platinum a try someday. It does, like...
That costs way too much money now.
It's true.
What do you think I am? Lower middle class? I'm poor.
Oh, the confession. The rumor come out.
The
Landon
rumor
is
come
actually
out.
poor and has been projecting the entire time.
Yes, I wasn't making fun of
The
either of
plot
you. I was
twist.
making fun of myself.
There you go.
There you go. So that is basically as much as we can talk about for Pokemon. Did we want to catch up on what we've been up to the past couple of weeks off outside of Twitch stuff? Got anything new, Jackaroo?
What have I done in the last 2 weeks? I actually don't think I've done much. I did go up to... I went up and visited some friends in Detroit over this past weekend. It wasn't for any particular event, just because I felt like it. Like, I didn't have any plans, and Bethany had to work, so I'm just like, yeah, fuck it. I'll go up for a weekend visit. But aside from that, I haven't gone to any shows lately, and I haven't really had much time to, like, sit down and play more Sonic Cross Shadow Generations, unfortunately. I played and beat It Takes Two with Bethany.
Oh, nice.
That is...
How was that?
It's really fun, actually. Like, I do want to stream it with Landon one day, but, like, there's a ton of, like, different mechanics that the game utilizes, and all of them work pretty fucking well, and it has, like, it controls really well, and it's just, like, a really, like, fluid feeling 3D platformer. Obviously the only downside is that you can't play it alone. You have to have someone else to play it with you, but you know, that's the whole point. The story and characters were fine, but like the gameplay wise, it's really fun. And I had a fun time with it.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. I was just making sure. Trying to think. Nothing too major new for me. We've been talking a lot about Pokemon. Well, unfortunately, for me, the stuff I've mostly been up to the past couple of weeks is Pokemon. Oh boy. No, I got back to playing Pokemon because I think I had mentioned in a previous episode I got back into it to play through Scarlet to Violet rather, and I like completed like these like in-game Pokedexes in Pokemon Home for the dexes there, so I could redeem like a special Pokemon. Well, I decided to finish playing through Scarlet finally, and I got like the last few exclusives that I needed. So I have updated my living dex, so I have everything again. And then I did like some cool like glitches and stuff in like the original Pokemon games that I hadn't done before, which were really exciting because I did not actually break my game. I just managed to successfully do it. It was like an arbitrary code execution sort of thing. I did something similar before in one game and finally decided to do it in another one, so that was cool. Been watching some anime again. I just last night watched the Pokemon movie The Power of Us, which was a 7th gen movie that had Zeraora. And I guess it takes place in a different continuity that was started with like the Marshadow movie, which was like a recap of like the first part of like the Pokemon series. So like I guess they had like a thing where like there was like a few movies in that time that were all like a separate continuity and were not actually connected to the main anime. But it was really good. Like it's weird to say this. The characters in a Pokemon movie had character development and backstory.
What?
It was actually really good by Pokemon movie standards. Yeah, like you have like a character named Risa who's like a track star, but she got injured and then she got afraid to like race it to run again, so she refused to do it, and she bonds with an Eevee that she ends up catching for her brother, and she ends up keeping it because they end up bonding because the Eevee gets injured in the same way she did, so like they kind of like bond through like mutual experience. There's like an old lady who like is like a crab. She's like a bitch to Pokemon, but it's mostly because like she doesn't want to feel close to them after like one of her Pokemon sacrificed itself in a fucking fire to give her a key to the burning power plant that they were trying to escape from, because the key powers the power plant, turns it on. So her Pokemon gave her the key and then was engulfed in the fire, and she also caught fire on her hand that was reaching out for that Pokemon and the key that it was giving her. So like her hand burned, so like she like wore a glove all the time. So like she has like this so she's got backstory. There's like a guy that like tries to lie to make himself look like a hero when he's not, and he bonds with a Sudowoodo because Sudowoodo's a Pokemon that likes to try to pretend to be things it's not. And like, yeah, and then there's like a shy professor, and he's like trying to learn how to be more outgoing and like speak up for himself, and he learns by actually befriending the guy that lies to make himself look better, how to like, you know, talk himself up a bit more. So like there's character development in a Pokemon movie. It was insane. Really good movie.
I remember watching this one a while back, and it is actually like a solid movie.
Yeah. And then besides that, I also have been watching more of that anime Dandadan. I cried my eyes out at the end of episode 7, so that was cool. Been watching more of that Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney anime. It's been pretty good. I got to the case where Edgeworth is the defendant, and what's his face? Von Karma, the old guy Von Karma, was the prosecutor. Manfred, that's his name. And a lot of heart gets introduced, and it's fun. I like how they recreate the game scenario. Like Jack has said in chat, like there's some parts where like it's not quite as well drawn as it could be, but it is pretty impressive at being faithful while also just being entertaining. So like, yeah, it's pretty good.
It didn't have the biggest budget.
No. I think that's basically it. Yeah. I tried to start Phantasy Star 2, but I have to get back to that. It takes a lot of grinding. Very grind heavy.
Didn't you just start a new like addiction?
Wait, what?
That Pokemon trading card app.
Oh yeah. I was putting it off for like the longest time too. Like it came out like right at the end of October, so we had recorded an episode that had already when after the game had already come out. I hadn't touched it yet though, but like more and more people around me were like, I'm playing Pokemon TCG Pocket, and I was like, that's cool, I don't really care about the cards. And then like more and more people were playing it, and I was like, all right, fine, I'll fucking download it. And then it's fun. It's cool to collect the cards. Kind of reminds me of back when I played the Game Boy Color game. So, but I at this point I've reached a point where I can basically just open my daily packs, and I have no intention of spending actual money. So I'm just gonna collect whatever I collect, and that's gonna basically be that. So, but it is cool to like have like these like cool art, and like maybe have a way to like play the card basic version of the card game, because it's not the same thing. It's like it's mostly the same, but it's tweaked a bit to be more streamlined for a mobile experience, which I wasn't sure if I was gonna like, but it turns out it's pretty fine, pretty fun. I like it. I think that's everything. Yeah.
Let's see. I really, I've only been playing Sonic Cross Shadow Generations. I've finished all the way through the Sonic Generations portion, and by finish, I mean I did the bare minimum to get to the final boss. And
Nice.
I'm like most of the way done with the the Shadow Generations, which I have been spending quite a bit more time in, and unlocking some of the collectibles in that. Mostly because this one is a newer experience, whereas like I played Sonic Generations and got 97% of the trophies on the PS3 version. It was fun to replay.
Don't feel the need to do it again.
Yeah, I don't need to go through and get all S ranks and all the red rings and complete all the challenges at an S rank.
You're also playing it on the Switch too, right? So it's not like you have trophies to like another set of trophies to go after.
That's true. I don't. So I don't care. Let's see what else. Obviously, they mentioned earlier when I was off getting Tillamook ice cream earlier this podcast, started Dragon Quest III HD 2D for the Nintendo Switch family of entertainment systems. That game is fucking awesome.
The people in in our Discord server, which I didn't mention this earlier, but you can join our Discord. There's links in the description. You guys got me wanting it. Like, I've been passively interested in getting back into Dragon Quest and like actually playing through it, and like knowing that there's going to be the HD remake, 2D remakes for the first two, and hearing that the one for the third that's coming out first is already out, is good as it is. I'm just like, now I want it.
It is also the perfect starting spot for the series because, like timeline-wise, this happens first because you're playing as Erdrick, and then like you play as his offspring in 1 and then 2. So it makes sense why they would release this one first, going like as they're doing these HD 2D remakes. But yeah, I unfortunately am playing it as a stream game, so I will sit there for a week wishing I could play it, and then I get to play for 3 hours, and most of that's going to be me goofing around. So like I will make not enough progress in it, but I loved it.
You could do like off-screen grinding.
That's content.
No, that's content that has to be in the stream.
Yeah. Also, I'm
okay.
not at the point in the game where I need a grind, especially because like I have a boomerang, and like that just hits everything on screen. So like right now I'm like one-shotting entire encounters.
Oh.
Yeah, I watched a Donkey video on Dragon Quest III 2D HD. Funny as fuck if you haven't seen it. He chooses 3 clowns for his party and just tries to get as far as he possibly can. Which
is not well, he got further than what I did in the one stream, so it's pretty far. And then I would say the last big thing is that we had our baby showers over this last weekend. We had one for friends, and then we had one for the family, and I am exhausted. And I don't want to talk to people ever again.
I bet.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
everything
where
for
we're
me.
at. Yeah. Oh, I have one more thing.
All right. Oh.
It was Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This
will
going
be
up
going out
Black
to
Friday.
Other platforms on Black Friday.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving and a nice hearty meal, and
enjoy
us
Black Friday by spending money on our Patreon, which we are not discounting.
We are not.
No deals. The
and
deal is you get content.
And that is more so because we actually cannot do that without having to kick everybody off of their membership, and then they'd have to redo it, and that's a pain in the ass. So we're not going to do that. So, that's everything. Thank you all for tuning in to another Gaming Stooges Talks podcast. We will catch you in another couple of weeks with another episode. But thank you, and roll the outro. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Pokemon! It's all about the challenges. It's a brand new game and a brand new world, new rivals. As you fight for survival, nothing can stop you. Diamond and Pearl Pokemon! It's all about the battle. You gotta play Okay, I'm done now.
Thank you for listening to the Gaming Stooges Talks podcast. If you enjoyed us, consider subscribing to our podcast RSS feed, or follow us on youtube.com/GamingStooges and twitch.tv/GamingStooges for more gaming content. If you'd like to chat with us, join our Discord. The link can be found in the episode description. We also want to thank all of our Patreon supporters. Your continued support means a lot to us. Not already one? Please take a look at what we have to offer anyone who becomes a patron at patreon.com/GamingStooges. See you next time!